How's everybody doing? Good. Okay. Everybody's very motivated. I get it. It's 4 o'clock. So Florian and I came today to just tell you a little bit about what kind of things we've been working on. First of all, who are we? Florian and Thomas. This is not an actual picture, as you can imagine. This is an artwork of one of our colleagues who painted it as she missed us as we were not in the office very often. And Florian and I, we started a company this year. It's called DeepThinkAG. We're an IT service provider based in Munich, Germany. We specialize in open source based IT infrastructure, and as you can see, we do all kinds of things. Obviously, as we want to be able to do our jobs and do our customers a good job, we need our own infrastructure to host our own stuff. And we needed a few things to be able to do good work. We needed flexibility in the lab to test all kinds of crazy ideas that we might have in our hands, to try out new cloud products that we might have not tried yet. And obviously, we wanted to be able to deploy virtual machines and containers easily.
And I think we also wanted to be able to test multiple things in parallel without any conflict. So if we mention lab here, it's actually 4, and we can make more of them, and that's very easy with OpenNebula.
What was important to us was to use standardization of our images through the use of policies. I personally get paranoid when a system is not managed by a config management system because I know how forgetful I am. And so I'm pretty sure if I would configure 10 systems, 3 of those would have some things missing somewhere. And obviously, we wanted to automate as much as economically feasible because we are lazy bastards. That's, I guess, why we became administrators. And we wanted to have things like high availability, automation, monitoring, backup by using a smart design and not necessarily emptying our pockets a lot for enterprise products. Not that enterprise products can't be great, but we don't really have the money for most of those. Yeah. And one thing that was very important for us is that any of the test cases or scenarios that we built in our lab, we need to be able to archive those in whichever way so that we can reuse them in the future if a customer wants to build something similar.
Yeah. Okay, what we ended up using is, of course, based on OpenNebula. We use NodeWeaver since quite a long time, and that's basically our our entrance card into having high available storage and all these things without setting it up on our own. For the rest of the infrastructure, we have a GitLab setup, which we will show in a moment. We use Rudder for all automation of the systems, except if we want to test something without it. But normally, each system will just be automatically managed, so we don't do anything for that. It's automatic. Monitoring is normally with CheckMK, and we will talk about that later, but not show a lot. And we have a Splunk server and an Elasticsearch for receiving logs from all the infrastructure. And as for hardware, we have 2 pretty large boxes, but the main point behind that is whatever we test, we will not run out of capacity. We just can add nodes as we need them, and normally we don't run a lot of them, like, 2 for the production infrastructure, like our stuff, and then a lab which can scale to a much larger size, and 1 more for web services and this kind of stuff.
We have a split GitLab, 1 internal just for the stuff that is our eyes only, the things that we work on currently, and a DMZ instance, if you want to call it that. The lab only has access to the DMZ instance so that we protect our data a little bit, and we only push to the internal one, but all the necessary repositories that we might need for the lab, we mirror that to the regular, to the DMZ. GitHub.
And this repo here is called curl2bash. I will talk about that later. It's part of our automation and testing infrastructure. And it just does curl2bash.
Yeah, we use Rudder for config management, as Florian already said. The Rudder agent is usually included in all of our images, no matter what kind of distribution or OS we use.
For the images which are our internal ones, we have another set which is without the agent.
Yes. And yeah, and we like to do server configuration by context. Depending on what kind of service is supposed to run on the VM in the future, we will have different policies that need to be applied.
Yeah. So for example, if you want to test new config management policies or some hardening stuff, which is more risky, we point it at a different control or master server. And we can also do that from the OpenNebula subnet or via the template, wherever we want.
Yes. And some of the fun things that you can do with all that infrastructure, we use disposable VMs a lot for all kinds of different setups, which you will see in a second. We use the services in OpenNebula for different kind of application testing, because we can just start one application on 10 different distributions and see what is the outcome and how everything works. And we built an AWS backup data center at home for one of our customers, just to have as a failover mechanism in case their AWS fails.
I would add, it's not in production anymore. It was during the setup time,
yes,
but it was quite funny to actually have that. And also with OpenNebula, we were able to make it look just exactly the same and also deliver the proof that their application does not just work on AWS, but anywhere. Should I? Okay. So with disposable VMs, we've done a few runs. For example, for software development, we tested a few approaches. For example, you just start 20, SUSE machines and start scripting and replacing the script in there until it works, and then you delete all that were prior to the point where you actually got it working. And then you start more and see if it still works. And so we put it quite central in the development workflow and started like having let's say a large pile of VMs which we just kept using until we actually had working software, which is very relaxing for the development process. And for the next one, which was a security hardening project, yeah. We changed it a little bit and made the VMs instantiated either on git commit, or if we actually instantiated one, we still looked up what is the most recent commit ID, and we just named the VMs by that commit ID. That means they do not collide. They still share the private key inside, so that they would overwrite the last one's reporting results and so on. But still, you could just spin up any amount and as many times as you wanted. As they booted, they would apply the security policy. So, I don't know, that was all automatic. Took maybe 5 minutes or something, and then the system was patched and had the right kernel settings and so on. And like an MOTD, because everybody who does security needs to have an MOTD. After the security settings were done, we ran something called Lunes. It's a very old project for security scanning. I didn't know that. I use it since maybe 5 years, and today they made a notice that they exist for 11 years now. Basically, this is a security scanner which has the nice feature of giving you a score, like how insecure is my system. So if you take a normal cloud image or something, you will be in the 60s percentage, and if you actually spend some time with it, it goes to the 80s. The base image we started with was a Vagrant box we just converted and uploaded. So we really used something which is recommended for everyday use, or somebody thought it's a good idea to use, and then started hardening it to a useful point. Of course, in our mindset, that image is still tainted because we downloaded it from the internet, but at least all the basic security settings are applied to it. After those scans ran, the upload was, sorry, the scan result was uploaded to Splunk. And that way we can actually compare if we improved, and we can associate it with a certain Git commit ID. So that was the point about this, setting the host name to the Git ID. Okay. The next thing we tried was for a different use case. So we didn't want to improve a single thing, but we wanted to test an application in many, many variations. For example, on every OS that anybody might be running we work with. So a few weeks ago, we met somebody who still has, I think, SUSE 9 or something. So we don't cover everything yet, but still we can now instantiate one OpenNebula service, and it will just bring up every common operating system. And then we can test certain applications in there, or test how they behave with security settings. And one thing we also want to do is comparing images, which means we look inside a standard Ubuntu image, one that we created, and let's say a third one, and then also compare these among each other. If scripts work in them, if applications work, such stuff. And the add-on we made is, like, we didn't want to rely only on putting something in a template. We wanted to have a really flexible mechanism. So if we instantiate these VMs, we can, oops, just a moment. We can access them via Ansible, via the Ansible one inventory plugin. We can add them to Rudder automatically. And we also have this curl to bash script, which will kind of parse the host name and the OpenNebula service name it's using. So all these VMs start with SVC. They got a label in OpenNebula called CI. And their service name, which you can see here right now, might, for example, be svc git hello world. This curl to bash script and all of the other ones know how to look in OpenNebula using OneGate, use that to fetch a Git repo and automatically run something called, I don't know, run.sh from there. And that means we don't depend on OpenNebula with this. We don't depend on Ansible. We don't depend on anything. We can just call it any way we want. That means I hope that we also will be able to test any application any way we want. But I'm not sure about that yet.
Yeah.
This is double.
Sorry. What are some of the things that we want to do in the future? As I said, I am sometimes a little bit paranoid about downloading images from the internet. So in the future, we want to start building our own images with Packer or something similar. We also are currently working on GPG signing and two-factor authorization for our internal infrastructure. And so obviously, we will also want to sign our image with our own keys. And we need to find a method to keep them in sync efficiently, because right now we basically have 3 separated OpenNebula installations, and we need to try out for ourselves whether federation is the way to go, or OpenNebula to OpenNebula cloud bursting. We still need to kind of work that out. Right now, our network is just separated by VLANs and by the architecture itself. And in the future, we want to have more strict ACLs. Make use of cloud bursting if we have the need in the future. But at the moment, we still have plenty of resources in our own infrastructure. And yeah, I think that was all of it.
For the replication, I'm still dreaming of using IPFS. Because that plugin would actually solve the replication of images. But I think it can only work for all data stores and not just for the image data store.
Yeah, and our experience so far, we probably love OpenNebula. We like to use it. It's great to have a unified workflow between the different infrastructures, because we also have a few customers where we run OpenNebula. And it's not open sourceable yet because our scripts and everything is still hacked together a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit ugly.
But we will try to upload it to our GitHub in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think in the next few days.
Or days, yes.
I know which things to still fix, but basically it should be there soon.
Yeah, and thank you for listening.